there's more money.
So Brian concentrated on the general fund. I'm going to talk somewhat about the public works fund to let you know. That was my first cell phone. Give you an idea of how old I am.
Well, mine was a car phone. It was before cellular existed.
Public works revenue. In order to understand public works, we actually have multiple funding sources. We have what we call our highway fund. That's our engineering staff, our administration, GIS, highway maintenance, our road yards, fleet operations, our fleet staff, and communications, which would be fleet. Our primary revenue sources for the highway fund is our highway user revenue, and I'll get into a little more about that in detail after this. We have vehicle license tax, various intergovernmental agreements. We get grants, interest on investments, and miscellaneous. Another fund that we have is our flood control district, which their revenue sources are primarily property taxes. They get interest on investments and miscellaneous. And then we have planning and zoning. Their primary revenue source is license and permits. They get zoning fees and miscellaneous. Now, planning and zoning is actually part of the general fund. And we also have a waste tire fund. We get state grants for collecting the old waste tires and having them hauled off to be recycled.
Instead of being dumped around town.
Exactly.
And in the landfills.
And we collect them for free under a certain size. I think it's 25 and up we charge. So I'm going to concentrate on the first fund, the highway fund. Our primary revenue source for that is a highway user revenue fund. We're dictated by statute and the Arizona State Constitution on how we could utilize those funds. It's basically to be used solely for highway and street purposes. Long statute, basically it gets down to the administration and maintenance of our public roads. We're also subject to an audit every year. If the Auditor General determines that we're misusing our funds, we're not utilizing them for highway and street purposes, they could hold our revenue until we prove that we are. Do you know how much revenue we get on a month?
No.
Yes?
250.
About 675,000
Per month?
to 700,000 a month. So if it were to be held for 2 months, that would be over $1 million.
Does the fuel tax go into her funds, like when you go buy gasoline and
Yes, and
stuff?
we'll get into that as well. So, you'll hear Public Works. Oh, they have a new building, they have this, they have that. We're dictated by statute how we can use the funds. Our fleet, they work on sheriff's vehicles. They'll log the hours, the materials, parts that they used, create a work order. At the end of the month, we have to bill, so we get reimbursed. Same thing with the fuel. We purchase the fuel for the county. At the end of the month, we run reports, who took it, we get reimbursed for the department. So, countywide we do it. So for every department, we send it to finance, they'll do generals and take it out of the appropriate department funds. You may question, I'm sure some of you guys here, oh, we're working up on the reservation, we're helping them out with roads. How do you do that?
IGA.
Arizona Attorney General came out with an opinion that says, it's a long one, but it basically says, although a county has no legal obligation to provide road maintenance on Indian reservations, the current Arizona law recognizes that if a county voluntarily wishes to provide such maintenance, they can. We have two districts, District 1 and 2, that are primarily up in the reservation, a portion of District 5, so we do help out periodically, quite a bit actually. They have Navajo Nation, we're helping them out with the Red Dog Project. They send 2 water trucks up there and 2 operators out to help maintain the roads.
Now, does that also cover like when they do maintenance on the Navajo County, or pardon me, the Navajo Reservation equipment out here in the shop?
We get reimbursed for that.
Oh, okay.
So if sometimes we'll work on a motor grader or something for one of the chapters. Again, they're logging via the mechanic work orders, labor, materials, parts. We get a bill, we'll send it to them and get it reimbursed. It's cheaper for us to do work in-house than to send it out if we can.
Oh, yeah.
Much cheaper. And our funds are wired to us monthly. So where does the HERF revenue come from? This is a chart from ADOT. It's, the numbers that you see there are in millions.
Millions or billions?
Million.
Millions.
So the revenue comes from gas tax, it comes from used fuel, various registrations, motor carrier, various operating licenses, VLT, and other. The state brought in 1.4 billion last year, or in fiscal year 17. Then we have different appropriations that were passed in legislation, so they'll take off for MVD. ADOT, the biggest one is DPS. They transferred out 94 million in fiscal year 17. And that's what Brian was saying, you know, we get hit hard on HERF, and we're starting to get it back. So that left 1.2 billion for distribution. 50.5% went to the state, 19% to the counties, 27.5% to the cities, and the cities with a population over 300,000 got an additional 3%. So when it comes down to it, Navajo County received 8.8 million in fiscal year 18 from her. Actually, one of the appropriations put 30 million back into the revenues for the cities and counties, and that's what Brian was saying, we're getting our revenue back. Before the economy fell, I think it was in 2005, 2006, we actually were bringing in 9.1 million per year. So we're almost there. So public works revenue, like I said, the highway user revenue fund, 8.8 million, that's our highest. We also get BLT, 2.8 million, various street sidewalks repairs, 22 million, other 48 million, interest on investments, 80,000, federal grants, and operating transfers out. So our total revenue for fiscal year 18 was slightly over 11 million. Our expenses for fiscal year 18, we spent 4.6 million in salaries and employee-related expenses. That's your health insurance and all of that. Our operating expenses, 2.7 million, and capital outlay was 3.3 million. Our capital outlay was really, really high in fiscal year 18. We're trying to replace our very old aging fleet. We probably spent 1.3 million in replacement of heavy equipment.
Gene, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I've heard in the public, oh, I see this new piece of equipment driving around. Can you talk about our approach to buying used equipment and all that?
Yeah, so last year we actually bought quite a few used equipments. I think there were tractor trucks, which are your semis, your big trucks. Those are expensive, they're very, very expensive, but when you're talking about us having a fleet, I think 2 of our motor graders we replaced, one was a 1978, one was a 1979, those are old. Our motor graders that we replaced, one motor grader, do you know how much it costs?
No.
You probably know.
300.
300, 330.
About 265,000 each. And that's a lot of money. That's one new one. We bought 3 new ones last year. Our tractor trucks run, new ones would probably run in the same range. We are probably picking them up for 40,000, 50,000 a use.
Yes, we buy used when we can. We also have the inmates on the really old ones, they sand them down and repaint them. So, because some of them, they look terrible, right? But when you have the inmates sand them down and give them a fresh coat of paint, it makes them look a little bit better. But no, we've actually heard that, well, you drive around and all this stuff, and they're like, no, a lot of it's used, and a lot of it we've repainted and tried to make it look a little nicer, and we get criticized for that, which it's been interesting. So.
I have a
But-
question.
Go ahead.
Well, I just have a question on the new versus used. Like say you tractor trailer trucks. They, the new ones, the brand new ones, are not as good of equipment as some of them that are like say in the 2005 year range. After that, when they got so restrictive on the federal laws and guidelines that they're actually worse pieces of equipment to own. The cost of maintenance is actually higher on those equipment than it is to buy them. But now what is the process in order, I know that the county, when they go to make an acquisition, that I'm sure there's different requirements if you want to buy a used piece of equipment. There's probably more red tape that has to go through it. You have to buy it from a certain, I mean, I would advocate to buy used equipment, especially where tractor trailers are. I mean, I was an owner operator for 17 years. That's what I did for, and like I say, the new trucks, when they came out with the new requirements and the new trucks, I stopped buying them and I started rebuilding my old trucks, you know, just for that reason. But when I asked about it, the people above me said, wow, there's more requirements, there's more restrictions on buying used.
Anything over $50,000, we have to formally go out to bid, but whether or not we get 3 quotes, we go out to bid. We have to compare apples to apples. So if we get 3 quotes, we need 3 used pieces of equipment, similar make and model, number of miles, or if it's equipment, number of hours that are on it, we look at that. So we try to compare as close as possible, apples to apples, but we, you know, anything under 50,000, we have to have 3 quotes. So sometimes to find 3 pieces of heavy equipment that are comparable is hard,
That are used.
that are used. So
Now-
that might be where they're coming from on that, because, you know, we have guidelines that we have to follow.
I'm assuming, like when I'm in IT, when you said used equipment, I thought, oh, that's interesting, because I don't think we buy used routers and switches. I mean, it's a different type of situation, but when you think about a car, as soon as you drive it off the lot, you're going to depreciate a lot of value, so why would you ever buy something new unless it was really, oh, it's going to save me lots of fuel, you know, so you'd think you'd want to save that. But I'm assuming in the process of this, you've got people that know trucks that are really looking at, okay, yeah, can we buy an older one that parts are cheap, they're easy to work on, let's not buy this new one because it's, that's what we're doing, right?
Definitely.
Okay.
Our fleet operations manager and our highway maintenance manager, they'll get together and scope out exactly what we're looking for.
Okay.
And I'm sure they talk to staff under them, so, yeah. So, but one of the of things you gotta keep in mind too. You know, if you see this new equipment, these new vehicles, the equipment is utilized to maintain our roads. HERF revenue versus general fund. They're separate revenue sources. We can't
mix them.
mix them. We have to spend them for our highways. You know, it really bugs me because I would love to give Brian $1 million for the general fund and say, here, here, take it, let's get moving. I mean, our HERF revenue is healthy. We have the funding. We're doing more overlays now.
What's an
Than
overlay?
we have in the past.
What do you mean by overlay?
James.
Asphalt paving.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. So it's the repaving of our roads,
okay.
the asphalt. We're doing more than what we have in the past because our revenues are coming back, but it has to be spent for a specific purpose. We
Right.
can, if I were to say,
Slip
for
him,
Brian, $1 million,
slip him $1 million,
you know, what happens to our HERF revenue?
it
We
goes
lose
away.
it. We lose what we're getting on a monthly basis.
Are we allowed to ask the county voters, can we spend this HERF for something specific? Is that,
No, that's federal.
no?
State law.
Okay.
So, our capital outlay, we did really good in fiscal year 18 on replacing some of our vehicles, some of our heavy equipment, maintaining our roads, our overlay program and so forth. So our total expenditures for fiscal year 18 was slightly over $10 million. Back to you. Any questions on HERF? I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of the difference on the HERF revenue versus general fund, since our public works HERF revenue is the big bucket.
Cool.
Huh?
Thank you.
Let's talk just a little bit here, and then I'll get you set up, and you're gonna play finance director, county manager, supervisor, all in the same person. And you're gonna build our budget for next year. But before we do that, and we'll do a quick break when we get the laptop set up. We talked about this, a lot of this already, that you know, it's doing a budget provides us our legal authority to spend, right? And it keeps you on track. Like what in your personal, in your home budget, your personal budget, if you just started spending crazy, you know, one month, next month, I mean, what's going to happen? You're going to run out of money. You're not going to be able to pay your car insurance bill when it comes due in a couple of months. The other taxes. So it keeps you on track. We'll see if you guys remember. Do you guys remember the current, future, ideal charts that I showed you?
Current, future, ideal?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I did a great job last time.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
You remember?
Three spaces, and you say, this is where we're at, this is where we want to be.
Yes.
And then this is ideal?
Yeah, okay. Okay, job. All right.
One.
So
Only
person
one.
remembers.
Just
One.
an okay job.
It's just one person. It was one. In fact, it's one.
Great job.
So, as you create your budget, right, and as you're thinking about your departments, your teams, I mean, what, the expression "put your money where your mouth is," right, what does that mean? It means if it's important to you, put your money there. That's the same thing in the budget. Like when we lay out a budget, we're explaining what our priorities are, what the state has required us to do, and you know, what is the supervisors, what is their direction for the county, right? And so as you're thinking about it in your teams and your departments, what we talked about last time is, remember, talk about what's currently happening in your division, your team, your department. Where are you at? What are you accomplishing? Ideally, what would you want to do? You know, what if you didn't have any constraints? What would you want to accomplish? What kind of service do you want to provide? Remember, and then you back it up and you say, okay, what can I do? And if we're talking about a budget year, you can talk about 1 year out. Okay, so here's where I am currently. I know, ideally where I want to be, but what can I do within the year? So how much money, what kind of resources do you have? But really it's, why does your department even exist? Why does your team exist? What are you really trying to accomplish? Have that discussion. And then from it, when you understand that, then, okay, what are my goals? What am I going to try to achieve here? Okay, what are those big picture goals? And then you keep breaking it down. Okay, goals, so how am I going to get there? What strategy? What objectives are going to get me there? And then what performance indicators are you using to know if you're doing a good job? How do you know if you're getting there? How do you know if you're making progress towards goals? Because you need those performance indicators. And I think what the real power in that is you keep pushing it down to your employees. And so if you think of, oh, this is really hard, a gear or a cog. Yes, that's a gear or a cog. If your employees, they have to know how their actions impact a larger goal or an objective that impacts what the county does. Employees need to know that. They need to kind of see not just what they do every single day. I put a radio together every single day. I work on this piece of road every single day. What are they really accomplishing? How is that really driving some objectives, some big objectives that you're trying to accomplish? What are the big goals that your department is trying to accomplish? Let's take law enforcement, right? I was reading in the conference room by the sheriff's office. I took a picture of it because I hadn't seen it like this. You could probably repeat it, right? Let's see. Okay, so it says that we take ownership. You engage in your work, you work with a sense of urgency, you deliver for those who rely on you every day, you live your values, you use good judgment, and you enjoy what you do, and you have fun. And I really like that. So that's in their conference room. So that employee, kind of that whole mindset of what drives it, but in law enforcement, why does law enforcement exist? To preserve the safety of our communities.
Enforce the law.
Enforce the laws. That's that kind of the why. And then the goals, what are some goals that the sheriff has? We talked about one where he wants to be able to respond, I think, within 30 minutes to calls. What are some other goals that maybe public safety that you guys have?
Lock up all the criminals.
Well, then we'd all be in jail.
Right.
Goals as far as for the public, we
Yeah.
want to, we have a large portion of part-time residents with
Okay.
summer cabins. We want them to feel secure that they can build a cabin here and that it's not going to get burglarized during the winter.
Okay, that's your real goal. So that's a goal. And then maybe a strategy, objective, that leads into responding within 30 minutes to calls, patrol using volunteers. We talked about the use of volunteers in the Hero Overguard area. So that you see how that drives down, okay, what are we going to do to actually accomplish that? And then the performance indicators, and we saw some performance indicators from the sheriff yesterday. I think there's been a 76% decline in the amount of burglaries in the Hero Overguard area since 2012. I would say that you guys are being pretty successful, right? So that's how, and then as you're talking to individual patrol deputies, you can share that. Like, we're trying to make people feel comfortable that they can have a second home, which means that we need to respond within 30 minutes. And here's some of the things that we do, and you've been doing this. And the sheriff gets a report of any calls that aren't responded to within 30 minutes, and then he can follow up with the sergeant and up through the chain, down through the chain of command. So all that, when we talk about budget and numbers, but this is what it should hopefully be feeding into. And again, it goes down right into the employee level. So they know why they're doing it and what they're accomplishing. every day. So, okay, so let's well, and just real quick, for your information, the budget year goes July 1 to June 30, right? We start talking kind of broadly. I sit down with Glenn. This year, Glenn put together his 5 initiatives that he wanted to achieve. And so we talk about how the budget fits into those. We start having those conversations, well, we talk about that all the time, but we really start thinking, how does it impact the budget in kind of the January, February timeframe. We start having kind of informal conversations with each of the supervisors of, what are they seeing, what do they want to see done, what are they happy with, what are they not happy with. And then in March, we start sending out the actual numbers to departments. Then we start meeting with department directors. And say, what are you trying to accomplish this year? What's working, what's not working? And we really start having those discussions. And this year we did something different where the chairman and the vice chair actually met with each department director and each elected official. And that really hasn't happened before. And that's what I really appreciate about Glenn, because he's very committed to talking and transparency and sharing information. So we had a level of transparency and discussion with department directors and elected officials that I don't think has happened much in the past. And so that was different this year. From those discussions, Paige and I and the rest of the team, we get together and then we start, okay, how does that really work out? How can we make it fit? And then with that, we make the proposed budget, we have more discussions, and we adopt the budget, which we just did a little bit ago. So that's kind of the process. So as you're thinking about changes in your departments, your divisions, your teams, you need to start having those discussions with your higher-ups in that January, February, March timeframe. You need to let them know, so then they can communicate with their electeds or their department directors, so that can filter through, so we can have that in our discussions. But so if you want to see something change, you want to go in a different direction, have those conversations early on in the calendar year, so we can get it included in the budget. All right. Take a few minutes. I'm going to set up some computers, and then you guys are going to do your own budgets. Okay? All right, so take a few minutes.
Can I put a raise in my budget?
Sure. You just gotta figure out how to pay for it.